Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Art and Business of Writing podcast. Today I am joined by my good friend Amy Bayne. Amy is the Fredericksburg Literary and Art Review's editor-in-chief. The Fredericksburg Literary and Arts Review is an online literary journal for writers not just in Fredericksburg, Virginia, but beyond. Amy showcases work from people all across the United States. It's creative writing, it's poetry, it's nonfiction, and it's art. So sit back and listen in as Amy talks not just about what she does at Fredericksburg Literary and Art Review, but she's going to talk about how you, if it interests you, can create your own literary journal. Hello, Amy, and welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
I am awesome. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Gosh, April went from kind of cool, wet to burning hot pretty fast, didn't it?
Oh, yes, it did. Don't know what to wear, right?
No, absolutely not. I remember last week I was like, man, the 60s is, the low 60s is pretty uncomfortable because it's like almost like a lukewarm shower where, it feels nice, but not quite what you want. And then now it's
right.
like 80, 85 every day, like out of nowhere.
Right.
But I definitely tend
Virginia weather.
Yeah, exactly. I tend to prefer the warmer temperatures, though. I'll take it.
Yeah, I agree.
So tell me a little bit more about you. Give me some more of your background that's not in the bio.
Okay, well, let's see. I've been writing most of my life. Of course, a lot of writers say that. I know. I started when I was young and got bit by the writing bug when I was in school, and ended up in college studying English and writing as a concentration down at Virginia Tech. Had some great teachers like Nikki Giovanni down there, taught me poetry. Some other teachers that I really loved down there, Virginia Fowler and some other people down there. Ed Falco, he was great. He did the first hyperlinked text back in the 90s. We were like, what's a hyperlink?
Wow, check it.
Yeah, he was really excited about it. None of us knew what it was. But that, so that's kind of where I got my base for writing. And then, I would say I dabbled in writing, through my 20s and 30s, but I was raising a son and I went to become a professional educator as a teacher. So I put it aside for some time, but over the past 7-8 years, I got back into it more professionally, kind of looking for freelance work. And I'd say that's where I really got it started again, writing for some local publications like Front Porch and later for Fred Parent and Hampton Health Journal. So, just looking for some little freelance gigs that I could get my feet wet again. And then that eventually led to publishing the Fredericksburg Literary and Art Review. So that's where I am now.
That's pretty cool. So you were taught by Nikki Giovanni?
Yeah, I had her for two poetry classes.
What was that like?
It was amazing. Yeah, she was she was a very chill teacher, you can imagine, but very powerful and really moved her students to push themselves and reach outside their boundaries of what they were comfortable with writing, but in a really supportive atmosphere. She's and still has that reputation of being a teacher that really loves and supports her young students, her 20-something students. So she's a very supportive person.
Yeah.
In fact, I just interviewed her for the fall edition. Kind of went back and asked her, please, can I interview you? And had a fantastic interview with her. And she still talks about her students, and you can tell how much she loves them. So I know that's a big part of her life. So
yeah, once you're an educator, that doesn't leave,
Not at all. But yeah, she's great. And then, the leading back into the magazine there, I was so appreciative that she wanted to talk with me, and be in the magazine to sort of represent what I think of as some of our great Virginians, and that's sort of the point of the magazine that I run, is to highlight people from Fredericksburg and then other people from around Virginia. So
yeah, let's talk about the Fredericksburg Literary Review. So where did you start? Like, how did you come up with the idea to do the literary review?
Well, it was already running. It was a sort of a blog style literary review through Water Street Studio, which is a little writing and art studio in town. This is actually in May is going to be their last month in existence because the women that run it, Susan Carter Morgan, Elizabeth Seaver, and Lynette Reed, have decided to kind of go back and work independently of that studio. I think Elizabeth and Lynette are going up to Liberty Town here in Fredericksburg, and Susan is going to have her own space for her letterpress art that she does. But anyway, Susan Carter Morgan and Elizabeth Seaver sort of started this original version of Fredericksburg Literary Review back in 2013, I believe it was, wanting it to be a publication that could be published and purchased, but found that was really difficult and kind of pricey, so they opted for more of a blog style and eventually decided that they would just run it as a rolling blog online. So that's how it was running for a while. And then Susan found that, it was sort of hard to keep up with. And so it was sort of lying dormant for a while. And I approached her last May and asked if she would mind either if I could work with her to turn it into something a little bit different, more of a traditional magazine style publication, and publish it online, or, and then eventually she decided to just let me go ahead and roll with it because she was moving on a different direction, from the studio they were in there. So, last fall was the first time that it was Fredericksburg Literary and Art Review because we added art to it. And it is an online publication that can be viewed for free or it can be printed on demand. And the price varies depending on how many pages it is. So.
Wow, what a story. That's cool though that, they would kind of come up with an idea like that to do like a literary review. So was it literary critique or was it like stories and like an anthology style website?
It was an anthology. Yeah, it was more of an anthology style website. And Susan was just really interested in giving that platform to people here in Fredericksburg because she knew a lot of writers. She's a writer. She was a teacher. I think all three of them taught at different times. And Elizabeth is a writer. Lynette's a writer. A lot of people who are in the arts are also doing different blogs and writing and things like that. So, there were maybe a few little magazines running around town that would run art and literature, but, she wanted to really provide something that was specifically literary arts-based magazine, rather than, the styles of periodicals that we have around town. So the original idea was hers. And Steve Watkins was also integral in helping them get it started as a mentor. So he's an author here in town, a quite notable author now with his young adult literature. And I think one of his books won the Golden Kite Award. Down Sand Mountain was the name of it. So, he was their mentor and kind of helped them get the ball rolling, and then they took it from there. So
okay, so we've got this blog site that's already on an existing platform. You approach them, you ask them if you can take it over. So what do you do? What's your first action now that you've got this literary review that you're going to be, for all intents and purposes, the editor in chief of? What is your first step towards like making it something kind of in your own image that takes on an idea or an identity of its own as you've done with it?
Well, like I said, I'd been working freelance for a little while, probably 6 years prior to approaching them, and I have always been interested in design. I mean, I've always been, a reader of design kind of magazines. I like online magazines like High Fructose, and I like print magazine How, some of the magazines that I like to just look at for interest. And I'm an artist myself outside of writing, and so I had this vision that this magazine could be something really spectacular, if we were to put it into a different package, so I decided to use InDesign, which I was familiar with. I did some yearbook work at the school I was working at. And so I used the Adobe products to create it. And, we just decided to open it wide, to the world. And we've got submissions coming in from all over the world. So it's now pretty, it has a pretty wide reach as far as where we're getting our submissions from, although a good portion of them come from Fredericksburg. So, and all of the feature pieces are about people from Fredericksburg. So.
Okay. So yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Just the concept of the submission process. So with the magazine, or with the anthology rather, how do you go about getting people to submit? Do you do just an email call to submissions? Do you do it on social media? Like, what are your methods for getting people to bring you content?
Yeah. So, this is, for me, it's sort of a learning process, the whole thing. Every time I'm sort of tweaking and changing. The first edition that we did, Susan gave me a lot of good advice from their process that they used. And they were using Submittable. They were using Duotrope. And then we got picked up last fall, just I guess because we were new, by New Pages and Review. And those are two other Submittable sites. So, these are ones that writers look for, places that are soliciting submissions. And so because we were out on all of those sites, we got quite a few submissions for the first edition. And then our submissions were actually up about 50% for the second edition, because I went ahead and, purchased ad space in those Submittable websites. So there was a little bit of money involved, putting it out there to get the submissions to come in, but it was worth it because, like I said, we were up 50% and, it worked out well for us. So.
Okay. Yeah. So for people who, for the audience who's listening, who, wants to create submissions, talk about those sites a little bit. How they work, how you use them.
Yeah. So, each of those sites, the ones that we used were, New Pages. This time around, I used New Pages, Review, and Duotrope. And so each of those has its own sort of segmented sections. Some of the sections include places where people can submit their own work to those sites, but they each have a section of their site dedicated to calls for artists or calls for writers, really. The art part just kind of comes from word of mouth right now, and I don't have anything out on art sites, but that might be my next step for the next one. But each of those websites then is, its purpose is to put those calls for submissions out through the different magazines, and then also to highlight different magazines that are doing well or that people particularly like. So you can use those sites for a number of reasons. You might want to look at your competitors, in my case, it's not really a matter of competition because my magazine is a not-for-profit. But if you're trying to make money, you could, follow your competitors and see what they're doing right and wrong. And, that could be one way you use those sites. But for me, it's just mainly outreach. I'm just looking to reach as many people as I can. So. Okay.
And you said there's a fee associated with using the sites?
Yeah, it's usually about $20 for a month ad. So, and that's just a short ad. But I think it's well worth it if you're looking to get more submissions and a wider variety. Because the other piece that my magazine has is I have two panels of judges that choose the pieces for the work. So it's a critically reviewed magazine. I have a literary panel and an art panel, and the people on those panels are either they, have some expertise in those areas or they're actually working in those areas. So.
So what do your panel of experts do for the magazine?
Well, okay, so the art panel views all of the art that comes in. It is the submissions are, I guess you call them blind submissions. They're, that they have no names on them. And so they just see the pieces for what they are and they decide, yes or no, they think it should go in. The literary panel is the same. People, for the sake of time and because it's not, my magazine is not a, working journal where people can work for it. I wanted it to be a process that would be as streamlined as possible for the people I asked to be on the panels. So I was trying to find a way to do that. So what I did is we used the internet to communicate with each other for the sake of time for everyone. And, we have a Google forum, like Google Docs that we use and, to communicate back and forth about which ones we like. And it was the same process for the literary panel. They read all the pieces. They had a bit larger job than the art group because we had about 400 literary submissions come in. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's a good return on your investment there.
Yeah, it was. I felt really, it was very promising. And, that was just in between the first edition and the second edition. So I can only imagine what we'll see next time. So. it'd be exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So for those who get accepted, do you guys send like an acceptance letter like, "Hey, woohoo, you guys are in," or like how does that? How do
Yeah.
I get notified?
Well, the submission process for us is to send the submissions, through to an email address. So it's pretty easy for me to go through as the panels are voting on things and deciding on things, and just notify people, and let them know that they have a piece accepted. And actually, you kind of have to do that quickly, because people that are in the habit of submitting to magazines are usually submitting to more than one at the same time. So we had a few that got away from us, like a few art pieces. The panel hadn't had a chance to look at them yet, and the person wrote to me and said, I'm sorry, these have been accepted elsewhere. So it's a little disappointing when that happens, and if it was something you really wanted, but that's the name of the game, unless you have, something on your submission site that says you're not going to allow them to submit to other places. But I don't think that's really fair to do that to the artist or writer. So
Yeah, I was going to ask if exclusivity was a part of the deal with a lot of submission sites or with a lot of, sort of these anthologies.
I think it probably depends on the magazine and the notoriety of the magazine, like how well known it is. Since my little magazine is just a little, starter magazine, but it used to be doing really well. I think with mine, I was fine with people submitting to multiple places. It's okay. Once it's accepted by our magazine, we usually kind of request that people wait, a month or two before they submit it somewhere else, because we already have it running. But
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And our submission guidelines are on our website, so we usually we have everything up there for people to see at fredericksburgwriters.com.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay. So, you do the call for submissions, you get the blind submission process. The writers are notified once their piece is accepted. What about the people who don't get pieces accepted? Are they notified, or is it just kind of like
Well, I really wanted to notify them this time, but because we had so many, I didn't get a chance to do that. And I might after I get the magazine put together. My launch date is May 1st. So, once I have everything together for it and I've launched it, I might be able to go back through and just write a little note, kind of a form note to people and let them know that it was, at least to let everyone know it's been launched. I probably don't need to go through and say, sorry, we didn't accept, your piece this time. Please try again. But I could send a blanket statement, and I probably will do this saying, our magazine is launching May 1st. And if you submitted, please submit again in August. And, that will let people know that, their work is free to go.
Right.
I've had people write to me, in this month even, and saying, oh, something's been accepted somewhere else and we didn't accept theirs. And I wrote back to them and said, oh, it's okay. Anything you have with us, you can go out elsewhere, because we're already rolling on the publications.
They save you the trouble a little bit,
Yeah. I mean, with 400 pieces, that's like 3 per person. So it's quite a few people. And we're a one-person publication company right now. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, with 400 pieces, how long does it take to screen that many artists and writers?
Well, we worked for a month and a half on this, accepting submissions. And then, within that time, if my panels were accepting them and I could see the direction it was going, everyone was done voting, then I would go ahead and let the person know. So, I was trying to keep up with that during that month and a half, so it wouldn't be overwhelming at the end, and letting everyone know right at the end. So yeah, as they came through, I let them know.
Nice. Now, Amy, how many pieces go into a collection?
It really depends. The first magazine was about 130 pages long, and it was, I think we had about 120 written pieces and maybe something around 35 to 50 art pieces. I can't remember the exact number. I'd have to get on my computer. But this magazine we're publishing, or I say we, but it's really me publishing it in May. I say we because of the panels, but the one we're publishing in May is actually going to be, let's see, what do we have? We have about 200 literary pieces and 100 art pieces, I want to say, something like that. So it's considerably larger, and that's not including 12 feature articles on people. So we have feature articles on some people that are somewhat well known in our area. So,
And so with the feature articles, are you doing the writing for all the feature articles, or are you?
I am right now. Yeah,
Okay.
because I have that experience. I've written close to probably 150 feature articles in the past 6 years. So, and interviewed people. So I've kind of not perfected, but at least I know how to use that technique. So I've interviewed a bunch of different people that I think show a lot of diversity of thought and also styles. I like to present a lot of different styles of literature and art. And, people would know who these people are, but they may not have really looked at some of their newer things or some of the people they may not know. So I'm hoping that they'll get to know somebody new that way.
Yeah, yeah. Now, the creative process of putting the magazine together, could you walk us through how you put it together?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of a fluid designer. I've not been, taught in a school, so everything is sort of intuitive for me. But I think because I have a design aesthetic and also have sort of always worked with art and writing, and read a lot and looked at a lot of magazines and I think all of us have in the world today. I think people are pretty savvy about design as far as kind of knowing what you're looking at because it's just out there in our faces all the time. So, I guess I'm intuitive about it. I start to put the magazine together and I kind of allow myself to work on the pieces that I like the best. And then as it gets closer to deadline, I have to tighten that up a little bit. But I think I usually start laying the visuals out first and start thinking about the written part. So that's just the way I work, though. Some people might do the writing first.
Having a little fun there. Yeah. No, I get it. Now, how is it organized? Do you organize it by category or do you just kind of, let it fly?
No, I do kind of let it fly. I mean, of course, I try to look at what I'm putting next to each other. Don't want to have like 5 poems about a sunset next to each other, something like that. But hopefully we wouldn't choose 5 poems about a sunset, but unless they were really, really good. But, yeah, so I kind of try to lay it out so that we have a nice mixture of art and writing so that all the art isn't bunched up in one area and, it's kind of fluid throughout the whole publication. And that's been the piece that I move around a lot as I work on it too, because as I pull things in, I will go back through it and scan back through it at a smaller resolution and see, oh wait, there's a whole lot of pictures going on through here, and then there's a whole lot of writing. I need to move some things around. But I also want to pay attention to, what the content is. Like I said, no 5 poems about a sunset next to each other. So, I look, for instance, for my feature profiles this time, I kind of flip-flopped back and forth between an artist and then a writer, and then I have a couple galleries in there. So, a gallery in there and then another writer. So that you get a variance, between the artist and the writers.
Right. Now, with your publication, do you theme out each, issue? Well, I guess let me backtrack a little bit. How often are you publishing? Are you quarterly or?
Twice a year right now.
Twice a year right now. Okay. And are they themed out?
No, they're not. No, we have not done a themed one. I believe in the early stages when Susan was running it, she tried a themed edition once and had a hard time getting a lot of submissions that way because it kind of, made people, it was more strict so that it was harder for people to submit things to it. That works for some magazines, especially bigger publications. There's some fantastic magazines out there that do themes like Tin House, and I think Poetry does sometimes. But as far as this one, no, I think it's better just to let it go more fluid. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned Tin. Huh?
We have some fantastic pieces in this one. I'm very proud of the selections that the panels chose this time. I think each time it just keeps getting better and better. So. Oh,
that's awesome. Yeah, I love Tin House. I don't know if I just love the paper so much. I'm like a paper junkie.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy reading Tin House. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a fantastic magazine. If you love paper, the paper that this is printed on, it's a print on demand. I mean, because I'm a small publication, I don't have the money to print it, in large batches, but There's a print-on-demand publisher called Picho, and they're located in the Netherlands. So if you are looking at it online, I use Issue to host it, and Issue has a cooperation with Picho. So if you're looking at it and you like it a lot, you can actually order it through a link to be, published in a hardbound copy. And so the paper is just beautiful. It's nice, thick paper. And, some of these pieces of art in here are just gorgeous. So on that nice paper, it's a really nice book when you get it. It's worth the $35, for the fall edition. I think the spring edition, since it's 230 pages, is probably going to end up being about $55. But it's well worth it to me if you like something that is really high quality,
Oh no, absolutely. I know. I love a real toothy paper. So yeah, I get excited about paper. I'll go to the bookstore and I'll look at like Monocle and some of these other places that use matte paper because I'm just so into that like rough matte feel on the cover and then even on the inside. Just, oh yeah. I get excited talking about it. Now, okay. So you mentioned Issue. So let's talk about Issue a little bit. So once you've laid out all your files in InDesign, you've put the magazine together the way you want. Now, how do you take it from InDesign to Issue online so that people can actually read it there?
Okay. Well, InDesign, I use InDesign through Adobe Creative Suite, and because I'm an educator, I do get a discount using that. I think just as a regular layperson, you can order Adobe for $40 a month online, and it's a subscription site that gives you the entire suite and updates it for you regularly. And I think that's the best way to go with it because when you buy that product, it's so expensive, the Adobe suite. And, getting it through a submission process, you can use it for as long as you need it. And then if you no longer need it, you can just stop your submissions or your subscription, not submission. But so Adobe Creative Suite is what I use online. And when I get ready to publish it, I just, turn it into a PDF file and then Issue uploads it as a PDF. So
that's a pretty painless process.
Yeah. And then, Issue is also a subscription site. It's about, I want to say it's like $30 a month, $20 a month. So, you pay a fee there as well for them to host it. But it's a really nice look on Issue, and that's what I was looking for, is something that was going to have a really high quality online presence, and it's a flip format, so it's like you're reading a magazine on your computer screen.
Yeah, so. Issue's really cool because it also has an app so you can actually download the issues into your device or your phone, tablet, whatever the case may be. I like Issue a lot for that reason.
Mm-hmm. And I went with the no advertisement version, which is the higher price point, but I really didn't want my viewers to have to look at advertisements.
Right. Exactly. Someone else's
the whole point
ads.
of the magazines to forego the advertising. So
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And for those listening, its Issue is ISSUU, just so you guys know. So you have something interesting. You have an interesting financial model to help you offset costs. You have a supporter model. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, that was this is new to this second magazine I've published here. And so in the second round, I solicited donations. Because I'm a not-for-profit, I can do that. And so solicited donations at 3 different price points for people. And within each of those, not 3 different price points. There's actually a bunch of price points, but 3 different levels of donation. And I just changed the names on those too. I was calling them bronze, silver, and gold level memberships, but I felt that was a little bit you're better than someone else if you can pay the gold level one. I didn't want to make people feel that way because I know, in my lifetime I have had to be the bronze donor and other times I can be the silver donor. Not often have I been a gold donor, but so I changed it to some different kind of names. Now I have contributing donors, which have a bunch of price points sort of below $25, I think. I'd have to look at my website to see those price points. But I chose that, I was trying to think of different levels that people might be comfortable donating or, in their means.
Yeah.
So that was sort of how I approached that. So
That's a
if
really,
I go over
it's a really cool
too
model.
much.
Yeah, you've got like the $5 to $20 model.
Yeah, yeah. So you have that's your contributing, and I have to go into the store. There's quite a few things. The one thing about doing the magazine, to do it correctly, or not correctly, but to do it in a way that I thought it would meet the most people's needs, I did have to subscribe to a bunch of things. So one of the things I subscribed to was Issue, and then of course the Adobe, and so you've got some cost going into those. And then I've got a subscription to, or not a subscription, but I use Square, to take my orders for donations. So there's a little bit of cost because you lose some money when you get a donation through Square. But I think that's a pretty good site to use. So yeah, at the online store, I'd say, so I have contributing supporters or donors. I have what I call membership donors, which would have been that like silver level, which would be the mid-range. And then the gold level, I just changed that to sustaining donors. So because those gold level price points are going to help me to continue to promote and publish it. So that's kind of
cool. It's a very cool way to go about it. And you said you have a not-for-profit setup. Is that common for literary anthologies, or is that something that you created? Like, do
Probably
I have?
Not.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if that was the business model of choice, or if there's a different business model, or I could use any business model.
Well, it was my choice, but I don't know that everybody going into publishing would choose that. Like I said, I have a separate career in education that helps to support me in being able to do this, to do this publication. And so really in my mind, it's really kind of a labor of love. I mean, I really like promoting people, and I like to promote fantastic writing and beautiful art. And I thought this would be a good way to get the community involved in seeing what was out here in Fredericksburg and promoting Fredericksburg to other places around the United States as well. And to show that we are, friendly to the arts here in Fredericksburg. I felt like this magazine would be a good platform for that. I've been approached by a few people who have given me suggestions about other ways to raise money too. So in the future, I might be able to find more funds through some of the grants and things that are out there. Like our Arts Commission has grants, and, some of the other things like that in town might be able to help me a little bit. But like I said, I'm kind of learning as I go. So those things are coming up, all the time, that people are saying, oh, you should look into this, you should look into that. So I guess for people starting out, I would say if you want to skip a few steps and not publish 2 magazines before you realize that there's a lot of stuff out there, like that could help you do this. As far as making a profit off it, I just don't know, I don't know if it's viable to make a profit off of a literary and art magazine when you first get started. I think you have to be willing to commit to a few years anyway, where you're kind of putting some of the money into it. So, and I'm okay with that. So
yeah, no, it's a great thing that you do. And I love your logo, by the way. Oh
yeah. The logo was designed by Elizabeth Seaver. She's an artist here in town, and people will recognize her work. She actually has a painting that went in this time. She has a lot of like whimsical paintings of big cats and birds, but she does also some woodblock printing. I think that logo was done with a block, and ink. So she designed that.
Yeah, no, yeah, you can tell that the influence of the wood block. It looks just like a stamp from a wood block. It's great though. I love the logo.
Yeah, and all we had to do to change it for the art part was to put that little line across the R. So we didn't even have to get it.
The simple things, right?
So that, I mean, like I said, it's been a learning process, and I think anyone in writing and publishing, I've done so many different types of writing over the years. When I was raising my son and working primarily as a teacher, I still was doing blogs. I wrote poetry all the time. I used to hold poetry open mics around town. I would try to get those going. So if you're interested in the literary arts or the arts, there's a lot of ways you can contribute to your community and be a part of it without being super famous or whatever.
Yeah, the famous Amy. No, it's cool what you do though. Now, okay, so for the listeners who want to get started, what would you say is the jump off point? Like, I want to create this magazine. It's in my mind. What's step one for me?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would depend on if you're doing a literary magazine, you'd have to ask yourself, where is your base coming from? You know, are you going to solicit submissions from other places other than where you are or your organization? Or if you want it to be centric to your organization, you know, are you just going to solicit from within your organization? I'm also running a little literary magazine for the school where I work. So, of course, that's just within our organization. So, you know, I think that's your first question. And if you do want to solicit from outside, then I think, you know, those sites like Review and New Pages, I think the $20 for your month of when you have your window open is well worth the money because, you know, even if it ends up you're spending $60, you know, it's worth it because you get so many submissions that and so much good quality work, you know, from opening it up that way. So the other thing I did for the first edition is I did a lot of outreach via email to different bookstores in Charlottesville, Roanoke, and DC and Norfolk, Virginia Beach area. So I just went, you know, through the list of bookstores in those areas, like small independent bookstores where I thought they might have outreach to poets groups and things like that. And I did get different submissions from people from those areas because of that. So if you have the time to do that kind of work, you know, and put in the work to find those email addresses and things like that, it can be beneficial in those areas as well without having to spend as much money.
That's good. I mean, it seems like a very, like you said, labor of love. It seems like a very turnkey sort of thing. Just basically coming up with the idea that you want to do it, putting together kind of the storefront, building like the site around it, and then just starting to solicit, you know, people to contribute to the work. Because I mean, people want to contribute to anything they get an opportunity to. So I don't see that as being a big obstacle for anybody trying to find submissions from anywhere.
No, yeah, there's a lot of people. There are a lot of people out there that, you know, are looking for places to show their work and you know, and I like our model because I feel like it makes the work that we do run the highest quality because you've got people who have some expertise in the two fields and they know what they're looking at. And, you know, I feel like they can pick the strongest examples, you know, of the work that's coming in. And it's very fair because it's a blind process. So.
Yeah, so very good. And of course the costs, you know, they're always the startup costs and the continuing costs, but the costs seem pretty reasonable.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I mean, it does rack up after a while, but if you do if you're not worried about making a lot of money right at the beginning, you know, soliciting some donations is always a good idea. And I'm just thanking my donors in the magazine. I don't have the funds to give them magazines. You know, I wish I could. I wish I could give magazines out to the people that have submissions in it. But what I do instead is I offer them the PDF of the magazine, and they can print it themselves if they want to, or they can go through Picho. So
now, one quick question I didn't get a chance to ask, and our listeners may want to know, and I'm very curious to know, is the submissions. Because I know some places do assess a submission fee. Do you do that, or do you just like allow free submissions?
The first two here, we've just done free submissions, but I believe for the next one, if I can figure out how to make that work, I may charge a $3 to $5 reading fee, and that's most places do that. It's just kind of fair, and it would allow me to pay my panels something, you know, like the people that are reading. So I would I am considering that for the August open window portion of time that we have. So, that's a good thing to mention to people. I felt like for the first couple that we had going out, I should just leave it free so that people could kind of get a taste of what it was going to be like, you know, and what it was going to look like. Yeah. And then now that we've sort of established our look and our logo, you know, I think it's time that we could probably do that. But I don't know that it's really a smart thing to do it right off the bat. Just, I think people kind of need to see your product and see if it's something they want to have their work in. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Now, kind of coming in for a landing, I want to give you a chance to just offer some closing advice and some tips for people who are interested in what you're doing. And either one, maybe they want to submit to you, or two, maybe they want to create their own.
Okay. Well, submitting to us is very simple. We have our submission guidelines up on our website, fredericksburgwriters.com, when we have our open windows. And if you go there when we're not open, you'll just see a lot of links to past magazines, and you'll see links to, when we've been out in the media, or the donation page. But when you go to the submission page and our window is not open, it just says no submissions are closed right now. But as soon as our window opens, I'll, I upload the directions on how to submit, and it's very simple. You just follow those directions, and it's an email process. So you just start emailing an email address, and our email is flreditors@gmail.com. And, that submission process is not difficult at all for us. But, as far as getting started, I guess I would just say that, if you have a love for publishing, or you've wanted to try it, or, you've been writing a while, or, I always tell people to try it anyway, try it, go ahead and give it a try, see what you like. I will say that it takes a lot of time. I work a full-time job as a teacher during the day, and this has been a second career now for this past year, that I have in the evenings. I come home pretty much. So get ready to work. And you'll need some kind of design package. Of course, you could design in Word, I guess, because you can turn those files into PDF files. But I do think if you want your magazine to look more professional, you do need one of these sort of, design systems. There's a lot of them out there. I just use InDesign because I'm familiar with it. So, and then just get started, get your submission, solicit your submissions, and have your guidelines set up before you start. How many do you want to accept, or how long is your window going to be open for people to submit to you, and then stick to that schedule. I would suggest between the first and the second one, I learned, like I said, as you figure out what's going to go in, let those people know so that they don't let their piece go to somebody else, or, they can also, then they'll know also they can submit to other places. So I think that's just a courtesy. So.
Yeah, very good. Well, you have listened to Chris talk to Amy Bayne, the publisher of the Fredericksburg Literary Review, on how to publish your own literary magazine. Hopefully you were inspired by that. Hopefully you will want to jump out and give it a go, as Amy said, and have fun with literature.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing, we usually just shorten it to FLAR, even though it sounds kind of funny, but it's just easier to say than having to say Fredericksburg Literary and Art Review every single time.
So are you trying?
So if you hear someone say FLAR, that's the same thing. So.
trying to feed the short version, man. I tell you what, we live in an area full of acronyms. I'm sure no one minds at all.
All right. Well, thanks so much.
Thanks
Chris.
so much for joining me tonight, Amy.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, talk to you soon.